What's going on YouTube? So since the all-new Tacoma's launch, this long-running nameplate remains one of the best-selling trucks in the US. Which is exactly why Toyota adds to this popular model every single year. So, what's new for 2026? And what makes this a bestseller? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Let's kick things off under the hood today with our spec dump. So the Tacoma is available in a few different varieties. We have the top model, the iForce Max hybrid powertrain. This is a 2.4 liter turbo 4-cylinder with electric components making 326 horsepower. It's paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and with 4-wheel drive, 23 mpg is your combined fuel economy.
Now, the base price of the Tacoma this year is around $32,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, of course, later on, we're going to be taking this hybrid system out for a spin. While we're on that spin, we'll get things like our sound level reading, and at the end, discuss resale and reliability.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood because we need to take a look at the exterior, the interior, and talk about any updates along the way. Now, getting into the exterior design here, I think this is one of the big things that has made the Tacoma so popular year after year. It's always had kind of this bold stance that looks a lot like a larger truck, even though this is more of a fun-size package. So for 2026, you'll continue to have a lot of different trim levels that you can choose from. Each one is going to have its own character. Today we have the TRD Off-Road. That's a very popular trim in the lineup. And you'll notice we have a blacked out grille up here. You have also a chunky looking blacked out grille on your lower fascia. And then as I kind of get down here, I do want to point out that one of the things that the TRD Off-Road is going to give you is some extra capability in the sense of underbody protection. So this does have skid plates. It's hidden behind this large air dam, which, by the way, is removable. I know most people are actually going to remove that as soon as they buy it. Now, let's take a look at the headlights. You have a standard LED headlight. This just is the incandescent turn signal, but if you get the Limited or the TRD Pro, that's going to give you the up-level headlight unit. And then, of course, as you saw earlier, we have the integrated LED fog lights right there. And walking to the back of the Tacoma, it continues with that tough look.
Yeah, I really like the way this truck looks. It's very handsome in its overall design, and let's break down some of those individual design touches. So you'll notice that we have Tacoma stamped into the tailgate. It's going to be finished a nice black color. You have iForce Max branding, and let's take a look at our taillights. So our taillights are going to be very premium. Now, these are the up-level units, so as you can see, we have an LED brake light, LED reverse light, and turn signal indicator. And then dropping down to the lower fascia, it's your signature truck look. This vehicle can tow around 6,500 pounds, and new for 2026 is the SR Extra Cab will now have a standard tow hitch. Now, of course, we need to talk about the bed. That's a very important part of any truck, and before we even get back there, I do want to point out one of the really cool features about the Tacoma is the fact that you have an available fully power tailgate. That's actually what we have on today's example. It's standard on the Limited, or you can option it on to trim levels like this TRD Off-Road. And it has cool abilities like that where you can just knee it up and it will go ahead and shut. So if your hands are full, with tools and things like that, you can easily shut the tailgate. Now let me drop that back down and let you take a look at the bed itself. It's about 5 foot on this model, as you can see, and we do have a little bit of a liner on this. You also have a bed liner underneath, and let's talk about some of the features. You have the rails along the sides, you have LED lighting as well, and since we have the iForce Max hybrid system, we have a lot of really great outlets as well. So you have a couple connections right there, and you have a more powerful inverter over there on the right hand side. That, of course, is going to make things on the job a lot easier for this model. Overall payload is about 1,705 pounds.
Now let's talk about the wheels. So you have 17 and 18-inch choices depending on which trim level you have, and just like with many elements of the Tacoma, you have a ton of different choices that you can pick from. We have the TRD Off-Road. We also have the Premium package, so this gives us this design right here. Also new for 2026 is that includes the 32-inch all-terrain tires. Again, there's lots of other choices, and you also have lots of other choices when it comes to the suspension. So the TRD Off-Road comes with Bilstein shocks, and then many of the other versions come with their own individual suspension choices. So we're going to insert that on the screen right now. Now, of course, you got the rugged flares around the wheel arches here. We have the iForce Max branding up there. And as far as the mirrors are concerned, we have blind spot monitoring as standard equipment on the SR5 and above.
Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering how you can get the Tacoma when it comes to bed and cab configurations. Well, you can get the extra cab, which is the shorter door setup, or you can also get the double cab, which is the full 4-door setup like what we have today. Now, you also have options between 5 and 6 foot for your bed sizes. Now, when it comes to colors, there are a couple changes for 2026 as well. Wavemaker is added to the TRD Pro, and the very cool mud bath color that used to be only on things like the TRD Pro is now available across more of the trim levels this year. Heritage Blue is now also available, and when it comes to active safety features, I'm happy to tell you that the Tacoma does include all of those as standard equipment, including things like adaptive cruise control. Well, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to the inside and what features they're including. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
And if you want to know about all the latest and greatest rides, then make sure to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the newest cars. Now it's time to move to the interior. Here is our key fob. Just the typical Toyota key fob. They don't have any Tacoma branding on the back or anything though. You also have an available digital key system if you want. And smart entry is standard. Just grab behind the handle, that will unlock the door. Now, let's take a look at the interior. Just like with the exterior, they do a good job of kind of adding the rugged kind of design to this truck. And before we get into the individual details of the interior, we need to talk about the seats. So Tacoma will start with cloth seats. Actually, most of the trims come standard with cloth seats, including this TRD Off-Road. However, since we have the premium package that upgrades us to the Softex leatherette you see here today, I like the design on board with the micro perforations behind there, looking pretty nice. You also get the standard leatherette, of course, on the Limited, and you get a special seat on TRD Pro. And as far as the seat adjustments, we have 12 ways of power adjustment with 4-way lumbar support. Let's go ahead and climb inside. Now, getting inside, we have the available Predator steps on today's model. You can get a power deploying running board on the Limited trim if you prefer, but this truck definitely sets up pretty high as well. Now, let's look around at the rest of the cabin in terms of materials. So we'll start out with the door trim. We have a leatherette pad right through here for your arm to rest against. However, the rest of the door trim on this model is going to be hard touch plastic, so that includes up here on the top. That trend will continue for the upper dashboard as well. We have a silver painted trim with blacked out Tacoma badging across the center of the dashboard. We have a rubber lined assist handle here for the passenger, and the rest of the materials will also be hard touch plastic. Now, as far as this version, you can see that we've got the red accented TRD push button start, and we'll fire it up now. With the truck fired up, let's get into the individual details. So we'll start with the gauge cluster. As you can see, it is a 12.3-inch full digital gauge cluster. It does have a few different designs you can choose from, and the graphics themselves are more rugged than in other Toyota products. There is a available head-up display, but just on the Limited trim level. And as we pull back to the steering wheel, we've got a really nice chunky steering wheel with the leather wrapping and perforation on the sides. This is actually optional, so we only have this in our TRD Off-Road Premium package, which, by the way, that is a very large and very expensive package. So it's like $8,500, and there's going to be a ton of things that I show you inside of this interior that are part of that package. Heating for the steering wheel is also part of that as well, and then the wheel itself is manual tilt and telescoping. Now, we'll go over here and take a look at our interior storage. First up, we've got our console, which, by the way, is finished in kind of a rubbery plastic. And then underneath there, we'll find some donuts inside. That's because we're doing the donut test, of course. And today we've got 9 donuts inside of this, which is okay for a mid-size truck. They tend to not be nearly as spacious, of course, as full-size trucks. We've got our 2 boxy cup holders right there, and then we've got a nice little storage area. Kind of runs through there and up through there. We also have the wireless phone charging pad, which is standard on just the Limited, or again, our TRD off-road premium package. Now, nice big chunky shifter. This is for the automatic transmission. You can actually get this with a manual transmission as well, which is pretty cool and super rare for the segment. Bump over here to the left if you want to shift manually. Heading into reverse, the premium package will give us the 360-degree camera system you see here today. As you can see, that looks really nice and vivid up there on that screen. We also have the special off-road camera views that we can use while off-roading. And if I press that shows you the little 3D spin, which is pretty neat as well. Now, of course, in this general vicinity, you'll find a few more key functions of this truck. That's going to be your electronic parking brake with your brake hold, and then you've got all your different drive mode controls and 4-wheel drive settings kind of inside of this knob. The locking rear diff is right there, and then as far as our climate controls, you can see we've got the available dual zone automatic setup. I like that this retains just big old chunky knobs here, so it's super easy to adjust. We also have the available heated seats and ventilated seats. So this basically is giving you kind of a cabin level of luxury equivalent to the Limited trim level. And then the final big knob is our big old volume knob. So with the premium package, that upgrades us to our premium JBL sound system. We'll give that a sample right now. Yeah, so overall sound quality of this system is pretty good. It fills up the cabin nicely. And of course, you know, the real trick that Toyota has that you've probably seen by now is the fact that the speaker can be removed. So if you're out camping or something like that, just pop that bad boy out. It's going to be fully charged already, and you can take it with you. Now, let's talk about the main technology. So as you can see, we've got an absolutely enormous screen. This is 14 inches. Now, again, you're probably not surprised at this point. It is also part of the premium package. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at a 8-inch display instead. But if you choose this display, I think you'll be very impressed by it. It's super large. It's super vivid as well. You have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, regardless of which screen that you choose. And I'll just flash back real fast to the main Toyota system. This is a very simple system to engage with, and you have built-in navigation. Up top, we have the available auto-dimming mirror. It is a digital camera rear view mirror as well, and then you have your HomeLink universal remotes. And then lastly here, I'll slide back the sunshade for our available sunroof. Or actually, I opened up the whole thing. You can see the snow coming in. It's just a standard size unit. You cannot get the panoramic style design, but we have the available power opening rear glass.
Now we've got to talk about the rear seats for the Tacoma. Now I do want to first and foremost point out the extra cab, so the shorter door version doesn't have any rear seats. It's just going to be storage. However, if you choose the double cab, you will have rear seats back here. And let's talk about overall space. Now, one of the things about the Tacoma is the fact that this is a pretty small back seat for the segment. We're looking at only about 33.7 inches of leg room and about 38 inches of headroom. Those are going to be, like I said, pretty small for the segment. The Colorado and Canyon are going to be a little bit larger. None of the trucks in this segment are huge, though. Now, of course, we brought along the official Car Confections ruler. That's so we can see a realistic knee room figure. This seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8". I'm 5'9". We are looking at only about 5 inches of rear legroom, so that is something worth pointing out. My feet can barely slide up underneath of the seat, so I definitely recommend if you're using the rear seats frequently to choose the Tundra instead. And by the way, if you are looking to cross-shop with other trucks, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. We've looked at a lot of the categories that might matter to truck buyers, such as interior technology, powertrain choices, capability, as well as things like space. So if you want to make an informed buying decision, definitely check that out. Now, as far as other features that you'll find here in the Tacoma, we have 2 cup holders right through here. We do have a household style outlet as well as 2 USB-C ports. You have a little bit of a center tunnel right there, but I do want to point out no armrest or anything like that here in the rear. So it's going to be relatively basic. No heated back seats or anything like that. You can fold the seat back down to give a little bit extra space. However, I do want to point out if you choose the hybrid, you don't have any under-seat storage, and it actually won't let you fold it up either. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, over at your door trim, it's going to be relatively cheap. You do have a hard touch on the upper part. You also have hard touch on the part where your arm is going to rest. So I'm pretty disappointed that the entire door trim is hard touch, but you have a lot of storage down below. And you also do have a spare tire. It's integrated underneath of the bed. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the 2026 Toyota Tacoma. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a lot on the screen, as you can see right now. And we'll also be getting things like our sound level reading. But first, we need to start with a hard acceleration so you can see what this hybrid powertrain is all about.
All right. As quick as that, we're up to 60 miles per hour. So, like Mason was saying, and we mentioned earlier as well, we have the iForce Max hybrid system. So that is really going to give us a big step up in terms of power. And we'll talk about efficiency later on, but I think most people, as the name suggests itself, are going for the max amount of power. So what is the power figure coming from the 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with electric components? Well, it is 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. So in particular, that 465 pound-feet of torque should really get your attention. That's a super high number for this segment of vehicle, and you can certainly feel that when you put your foot down.
Absolutely. That acceleration was a great example of just how powerful this truck is. Honestly, the past, models that we've reviewed have just had the standard 2.4 turbo engine. This definitely feels like a big step up when it comes to power and how it's delivered. I think in addition, because you have that all-electric torque to get you off the line, and 465 pound-feet is just really a lot for the midsize segment. Now, it does have some good competition. The Colorado and the GMC Canyon do have quite powerful engines as well, but certainly this hybrid Max is going, or iForce Max, I guess, is what Toyota calls their trucks, is going to definitely be very healthy for the segment. Now, I do want to hit the base powertrain because a lot of you will choose that as well because it is an upcharge to get the hybrid system. That's a 2.4 liter turbo 4-cylinder. It makes about 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. We've driven that in a bunch of other Toyota, Lexus products, and we have reviewed a Tacoma with that powertrain last year if you'd like to hop on over and see what that's like. But like I mentioned, I think this hybrid is kind of the way to go if you're a power junkie, and also the noise is quite a bit different. They've kind of beefed up the noise to put in a little bit more of the artificial sound to make it sound more like a truck.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds quite burly on the inside, if not the outside. And that matches the overall character of the powertrain. Now, speaking of the powertrain, let's talk about the transmission. 8-speed automatic transmission. It's a good partner to this. Definitely responds well to the torque of this hybrid system. And I mentioned earlier, you can also get a manual transmission as well, not with the hybrid, but with the standard powertrain on certain trim levels. That, again, is something that is very rare in the segment, even though it used to not be. I would definitely appreciate that they still allow you to do that.
Yeah. And as far as how power is routed to the ground, you do have 2-wheel drive or available 4-wheel drive. Now, do be aware that some of your off-road trim levels will have the 4-wheel drive system as standard equipment, or you might have to pay extra for it on certain versions. And let's quickly talk about the fuel economy as well. So, as you can expect, there are so many different trim levels. There's a ton of different fuel economies. I'll hit some of the highlights. So probably the most common configuration would be the standard engine, maybe like a TRD trim level. That's sitting at 19, 23, 20 miles a gallon combined with 4-wheel drive, which most people will get in a truck. Of course, with the hybrid model, though, you do get better fuel economy. It comes in at 23 mpg. So that's something I kind of want to highlight, is just the fact that you get 3 better mpg combined and you're also getting that additional power, so that definitely makes this powertrain more desirable, that's for sure. The fuel economy is going to be pretty okay and comparable to the rivals, though.
Yeah, I had my foot down probably like 25% just then, and the torque is just so effortless that it makes this truck feel very, very powerful.
Now let's go ahead and get our sound level reading going 55 miles per hour. I'll go ahead and toggle us to fan speed 1 so we can see how quiet this Tacoma is. Pretty good. 56.9 decibels. The weed man couldn't ruin our sound level reading there in the Tacoma. That's going to be a pretty good figure, but I don't have to sit here and guess. I can go to carconfections.com/sound level readings and see how it compares to all of the other midsize trucks on the market. And compared to those midsize trucks, is actually going to be one of the quieter options. This segment tends to be pretty loud, so that 55-ish sound level reading is actually very good for the segment, that's for sure. But we are just cruising down the highway here, and I want to take a second to discuss ride quality as well. Of course, that's important for any type of truck buyer. Toyota has worked on this, and like Drew said on the outside, if you were paying attention, there's really different suspension setups on, I believe, almost every single trim level of this truck. So if one of them doesn't fit your needs, you can hop on over to a different trim, and that might be a better choice. Now, what we're in today is the TRD off-road. So this is going to have a more off-road tuned suspension setup. It is going to be, decently comfortable here on the road. It does a pretty good job of soaking up bumps, although a midsize truck in general is going to be on the rougher side for ride quality, so that's something to keep in mind. If you want the best and smoothest ride, I would encourage you to get the limited trim level, which does come standard with adaptive variable dampers. That is, a new feature for this new generation of Tacoma, and we have been behind the wheel of that, and I do believe it increases your ride quite significantly as compared to just the standard suspension setups that you're going to find on most of the Tacomas.
Right. The body-on-frame platform of the truck, especially if you don't have anything in the bed, is going to kind of jar you and jostle you a little bit while you're driving along. The Limited does kind of do its best to eliminate that. But as far as the all-terrain tires, I have to say I don't really feel a lot of naughtiness or anything from them, nor do I hear them much at all. Yeah, no, I think the sound level reading kind of proves that, the sound level reading being very quiet for this segment while still having those all-terrain tires on the outside, I think is very impressive. All right, what's our Car Confections Slam Dunk and Air Bar favorite and least favorite element? Drew, kick us off with the Slam Dunk of this model. The Slam Dunk we've picked is the customizability of this Tacoma. And what we mean by that is just the sheer number of versions that you can get. It really is unrivaled. You can just make so many different configurations. And like we've been talking about throughout this, whatever you intend to do with this truck, you really can buy a version that's going to meet that need, whether that's street-oriented, off-road-oriented, or even something really hardcore.
Absolutely. Now, on the flip side, what we're going to say is the airball is the price. This Tacoma is certainly very expensive. This new generation raised the price a lot, and, you'd be very surprised to find out that this truck is over $60,000 that we've been looking at today, that's for sure. So you do have to pay to play, in a sense. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, the truck starts out at around $32,000 this year. That does represent about a $500 price increase on all of the trim levels for the 2026 model year, but there are a ton of different trim levels and a ton of different price points. You end at the TRD Pro model, which is around $65,000 as a starting point. And what we have today, as you can see, is the 2026 Toyota Tacoma TRD Off-Road 4x4 Double Cab. That means we start at $47,235. Like Drew mentioned, $8,500 for that premium package. There's also quite a few options that we have on this particular model, in addition to a $1,595 destination charge. All told, we're sitting at $60,398 for this model that you've seen today. If you're curious as to where it's assembled, it is in Mexico. Now, if you're looking to buy a Toyota Tacoma or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that'll connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while dealership negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as things like our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that down below in the video description, as well as a pinned comment. But it's time to talk about resale and reliability, so let's go ahead and get into that. First up, let's talk about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, we took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Toyota Tacoma's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll be worth around 64.5% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 41.4%. Now, it's worth noting those are really amazing overall industry averages for resale value. It's the second best in the 5-year metric and one of the very best in the 10-year metric. And I do want to also specifically point out, historically speaking, the Tacoma is one of the best resale value vehicles that money can buy, period.
Now, great things can also be said about reliability. That's why we developed the Combined Reliability Index, because this takes into account several studies on reliability from trustworthy sources and combines them in a way that gives you a holistic picture. When we look at Toyota, we see that it's rated as one of the very highest brands in overall reliability.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, our reliability data, or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. Now, when it comes to your warranty, you do have a pretty good one. It's a 3-year, 36,000-mile basic warranty, 5-year, 60 powertrain, and you do get 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. And guys, that's all for our in-depth review of the 2026 Toyota Tacoma. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, which we hope you did, we'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to be a part of our Car Confections family. We have a lot of fun on this channel, and I promise you won't want to miss out. If you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support. You make this all possible, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.